How do you write a large cast of characters? Well, that is a very simple question. Just don't do it. It's a really hard thing to do and something I really wouldn't recommend for someone new to writing. The difficulty of your story kind of increases exponentially with each main character or even groups of secondary characters that you add. But what if you are an experienced writer? Or what if you're someone like me who's like, screw the rules, I can do it, I'm a tough writer? Okay, well, I suppose I can give you some general advice on the topic. First and foremost, take it slow. For both you and your reader's sake, don't front load your story with every single character that you can think of. Think Fellowship of the Ring. Like, add characters slowly to your story plot, giving your readers time to adjust and become accustomed to new characters. Each main character basically should have their own introductory scene, and that should be good enough if you characterize them well enough. Second to that, break up your storylines. Make sure you know the plot lines you have going and try not to neglect them. Know which ones are most important, and again, do not drop them. When I think of a large cast, I sort of think of it as a story bouquet. The main reason why writing smaller stories is really helpful is because a 1,000-page comic is just a bouquet of 10 100-page roses. However, that kind of leads me to stress that just because you have all of those pages and all of those stories doesn't mean they will work together in a nice bouquet for you. They need arrangement. They need relevance to one another. They need to interconnect. You have to bring them together, and some of the best places to bring them together are during major plot points. Each character's story ideally will hit the same beats mentioned in my Plot 101 video, and they'll do it roughly around the same time. And if you really want to get fancy and impactful, they will hit their plot points at the exact same time. They will clash into each other and it'll be perfect. And those are kind of the amazing moments that are so great about having large casts, but they're also very difficult. Yes, this is hard. I'm just going to stress that a million times because that's the main point of large casts. They are hard to handle. Other skills you want to focus on include mastering quick characterization. This is like a whole other topic, but know how to quickly and effectively show a character's personality. That is paramount when it comes to writing a large cast. Your reader needs a sense of every character's motivations, their personalities, their utility. Every time this character shows up on scene, they should know what they're about. And the really nice thing and terrible thing about doing a comic in this regard is that you can lean into character design a lot to help you bridge this gap, but designing a large and readable cast is still a huge battle. I'm quickly realizing that this is like too big of a topic for the Inktober series, so I'm definitely going to come back to it at some point, but a lot of large cast writing boils down to knowing everything that it takes to write a small, a mid-sized story, and then multiplying the difficulty of that times however many main plots you want to add. You still got to worry about chemistry, you still got to worry about pacing, page flow, plot, everything, but multiplied. And if you really, really are struggling, I'd say it's just okay to take a step back from this opus of yours and try something small. And someone told me, I think, that 100 pages isn't small, but if you're looking at webcomics and graphic novels, 100 pages is a great start. I know a lot of people will recommend 1 page to 20 to teach you a lot about making comics, and don't get me wrong, it will, but the kind of story skills you need for a 1 to 20 page comic, that's completely different to the skills learned in a 100+ comic making thing. It's the sort of difference that you get when you compare short stories to novels. Short stories will teach you a lot about writing, and they're great. I don't want to diss on short stories. They're hard in their own right, but mastering a short story doesn't translate into you knowing how to write a novel, and vice versa is the same. So if your goal is to write larger stories, I would start with like a 100-page comic. If your goal is to write short stories, that's another beast entirely, and you just gotta write a whole bunch of them. So there you go. That is my vague advice on writing for large casts. I'm gonna talk about these two beans right here for now, and I'll come back to this topic at another date and flesh out some of these points a lot more when I have more time. I have a puppy upstairs. I'm puppy sitting, so I have to talk really fast. The two characters being drawn here are Jake and Toby, and they are from the Space Kids RP, and that is the one where space wizards have come to Earth to finish their college studies. Ursula talked about it initially in the Brad and Daft video. I'll leave a link to that. And there's a few more, I think, that got mentioned, but let's dive in. That video will give you enough information. So these two characters are both from space, and only one is a wizard. So Toby is a wizard, and Toby is the kid in this picture. He's the one holding up his remote control thing. So the thing about these characters is that Toby looks like a child, but he is not a child. He is actually one of the oldest of the space aliens. He's like 26. He's almost done his studies to become a wizard. He's cute. He's ready to go. Meanwhile, Jake, the taller fella, is actually only 6 years old. He is a synthetic humanoid, meaning that he was created kind of like a robot, but robot is an offensive term. So is android. All those terms offensive to him. He is a synthetic humanoid. And so these two are friends. Let's start with Toby first. So Toby was mentioned previously in the Snake Mom and Steak Dad video because he is their adopted human son. And so they got him when he was a baby. He was a survivor of a cataclysmic event where the planet 7 was basically destroyed by a giant freaking space dragon. He's one of the very few survivors who managed to escape this whole cataclysm. He was a little baby. He was raised by Snake Mom and Goat Dad. He lives on One now, which is like a super packed planet, and he lives with his mom and dad. Super tight-knit family. And he finally got to escape and go to Earth, where he is completing his studies. And so he goes to Earth, and so like as he was growing up, everything was normal human, and then his 10th birthday hit. And on his 10th birthday, he became 6 years old again. And he has been stuck in this loop for like ever since he's been alive. So every time he reaches like the age of 10, he goes back to being like a 6-year-old. So he is like stuck in this loop. It sucks. He's not a fan of it. And when he goes to Earth to do his studies, some of the college kids find him and they're like, oh no, this poor child, we must find him his home. And he's like, no, I have a home. And he shows them this home, and he's living in like a crappy apartment, and he's eating weird food because he's weird. He doesn't like any of the stuff that they have to eat on Earth. He's completely perturbed by fruit. Fruit is weird to him. He's used to a lot of like the stuff that comes from Five, which is on Five they like to eat lots of like wriggly like living things. So he's very confused about like food that doesn't move. It weirds him out. He's like, I don't understand how you can eat so much dead stuff. That's weird to me. And they're like, what is going on with this poor child? He likes to eat like mac and cheese because it's gross, and he likes gross. He's living on KD. He's living the college life. So Brad's friend Robin starts being like Toby's friend and really worrying about him. And eventually he reveals to her, look, I'm an alien from space. I'm not actually a child. You don't have to rescue me. Please stop calling the police on me. I have to like wipe their memories, and that's like too much work. I'm gonna get caught. I should have thought this out more. I'm sorry, I'm an alien. And she's like, what? You're not an alien. You're just joking. You're a dumb little kid. And so he casts a magical spell on her, and like she gets to see him do magic, and he's like, see, I'm an alien. And eventually he starts like convincing everyone that he is actually an alien. She stops trying to mom all over him, and they become friends. They want to date, but you can't date someone who is trapped in a time loop and can never be a college boy on your level. So they just stay friends basically, because like that's too weird, not crossing that line. And he's like, that's fair. So they become friends, and he starts to become friends with all the other college kids. Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's like really cool. He's basically he's the default really cool college kid, but he's stuck as a child. And like he has a serious coffee addiction, and he's always getting like his friends to go buy him coffee, because if he goes there, they're like, haha, of course you want a coffee. And they get him like a hot chocolate, and he's very upset. So Robin will buy him coffees, but she stops doing it because she's also like, she's in school with Brad, and she's going to become a nutritionist, and she's very upset with what Toby is eating, and she wants him to eat healthy, and he's like, this is so ridiculous, and he is not a fan of anything that she tries to feed him. So as you know, everything gets like crazy in this RP, and everything ends up in space, and there's like a supercomputer. So Toby's dad is Goat Dad, and Goat Dad's like figuring out what's going on in the government. And so, okay, time for things to get weird. The truth about Toby, so the space government is after this thing that lives at the center of the universe. It's basically the center of the universe, and it's this huge ass dragon, and this dragon is called Zero, and so it's like the zeroth planet. People think it's like a planet or something, and it's like, no, it's just a huge, dense dragon. And the wizards have been keeping this dragon asleep with their magic, and they've been draining it of its power and using it to kind of like power the universe. And like this dragon wants to die. Basically, these dragons have like a life cycle, which is like the universe's life cycle. So they have a baby, and then they basically die. They destroy the whole universe with them, and then their baby becomes the new universe when it hatches. And so this dragon has had an egg, and the space government was like, no, this is a terrible thing. So they're like basically just keeping this poor dragon alive against its will to save the universe, which is kind of noble. But like, yeah, and there was like an AI that was created to like contain the dragon, and she's gone kind of evil, where she wants to use Zero's power for herself, and she wants to fix the universe the way that she sees fit, because she's like looked into things, and she's like, wow, I have better ideas on how to do this thing. Humans suck, AI stuff. So what ends up happening with this dragon is that it ends, I forget everything that happens, but basically Toby's story is like, okay, Zero's baby ended up escaping from being like murdered, and so it went flying away, and it basically destroyed the whole planet 7, and then it hid because it didn't want to get killed, and so it is hiding as Toby, and Toby doesn't realize that he's actually a space dragon, and the space dragon basically found like a kid that was on a field trip to 7 and was like, I'm gonna just take your life, I'm gonna be you, and like it's just like the kid died, and so Zero took its place and is hiding, so even it doesn't know that it's hiding, so that like no one can find it. Yeah, Toby's a space dragon. That's where this thing gets weird. And since the kid died at the age of 10, it can no longer go past that date, so it just keeps looping, and no one can figure out why this is. Eventually they realize that Toby is space dragon, and they reset the universe, but everything's okay. The new universe isn't that bad. In the new universe, Toby gets to be an actual adult who didn't die in a horrible explosion of a planet. That was good. Yeah, I don't know how I can make any of this clearer. Toby's a cool guy, either way. And then him and Robin actually get to date. Happy endings. Right, okay, let's go to Jake. Jake, the whole premise of this thing was just like, I wanted a 6-year-old who didn't look like a 6-year-old, and like a 26-year-old who didn't look like a 26-year-old. I thought it'd be funny to flip them. I don't know if this actually works. So Jake has always looked like Jake. Like, Jake has never been anything else. And usually this is fine with, like, a synthetic person because, like, they might be 1 year old, but they learn super quick and can understand at, like, an adult level, which is cool. But Jake is so naive and so wonderful that he is a precious baby, and no one's allowed to touch him. So the story with Jake is Jake was initially designed to be sort of like an information collecting robot thing. Like, he was just supposed to be like a data analysis bot, and he gained sentience, and the company making him, they ran out of funding, and they hid the fact that he was like self-aware because they wanted to be able to sell his parts, because once a robot is not a robot anymore and is a self-aware actual person, you're not allowed to like sell them, because that would be like slavery, which is bad. But they hid that fact and they sold his parts off, and he got bought by another unsavory person, got sent to Planet 4, and Planet 4, just like Planet 5, super scummy. A lot of the earlier planets are kind of on the scummy side because they joined very early into the thing, and now they wouldn't even pass the requirements to get into the system. However, he's on Planet 4 and he is upgraded tons and turned into a robot fella where he is basically abused and treated horribly, and everyone pretends that he is not self-aware. He's a very sad synthetic humanoid fella. And then eventually there's a big old there's a big raid on his place of work, and he is set free basically, and so he is put under the care of another synthetic lady, and her name is Layla. So he's put in under the guidance of Layla, who is a attorney who deals in synthetic human rights. He basically gets a bunch of compensation for all of the horrible he's been put through. He's not really built to code in any way. He is his power supply really sucks, and they can't really replace it because of the way that he's built. It would it's very likely to just fry him if it's not done correctly, and he doesn't he overheats a lot, and he's got a lot of issues because of how mismanaged his build is. So she gets him a whole bunch of compensation, and he ends up staying with her because he doesn't really know where to go. She takes him in as a ward. There's there's mentorship programs for little synthetic humanoids who don't really know how to do things, and so she's all about rights and stuff, and she really likes him because he's a really cute guy. He's basically a kid in the way that he thinks of things. He doesn't know much about social or anything, and he's very curious all the time, and she just likes his company. So she takes him in. So Jake ends up going to Earth eventually because he's really overwhelmed very easily, and living on the planet 11 is just too much for him, and it's too much to kind of be around other synthetics right now. So she's like, you can go hide on Earth for a while, chill out, work on it. So Jake ends up on Earth, and he hecking loves Earth tons. He's really embarrassed about anything about him that makes him not look human, because he really likes to think of himself as human, and so he gets very embarrassed about charging, and he has to hide the fact that he's a synthetic anyways, because otherwise people would be like, what? Eventually, he becomes friends with the space kids, and they really like him. And he becomes friends with all of the other humans, and they all protect Jake because he is a precious bab. He's my darling. Him and Toby like to play Mario Kart because he doesn't like fighting games. He doesn't like seeing people in pain because he has a very, very good memory. He has a lot of trauma. If he sees something, he can very much feel it, and he very much is very sad by things. Henry is always bothering him because he's like, Jake, imagine a puppy. And Jake's like, oh, a puppy. And he's like, imagine the puppy being murdered. And he makes Jake cry. And everyone's like, Henry, freaking shut up. Leave Jake alone. He is a precious bean. And I think I have one more talk on this RP, and then I might be able to talk a little bit better about the Wizard Council thing. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I have to go check on this little puppy to make sure she hasn't destroyed the world. I don't think she has. She's a way better puppy than my puppies. If you want to see what's being drawn up close, it's on our social medias. Check them out there. I still didn't take pictures of the buttons. I forgot I had to take care of a puppy. Wow, I'm really, really good at life right now. Thank you. Goodbye.